Pipe Network presents.
There was so much of life that had buried on top of that initial root situation that I had to get through that stuff first before I could even go back to the past to find the healing that I desperately needed. So the turning point for me to start that journey was in 2008. My pastor's wife passed away in 2005 from breast cancer. And 3 years later, I was grieving her as if it was yesterday.
This is Mike and Ham from Please Pause. Meron kaming munting podcast where we talk about all things TV and film. And despite that, surprisingly, we are still married.
Control freak ka kasi sa podcast na to.
30 seconds lang po ang meron tayo. Pakibilisan.
From blockbusters to classics, superheroes to love teams, hit series to teleseries, join us as we have meaningful and meaningless conversations on the stuff we watched. Someday, mababago ka rin ang tagline na yan.
Check out Please Pause on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, and other major podcast platforms.
See you there!
Hey folks, welcome back to another show of the Rajiv Show. And this time we have another international guest. We're having a lot of international guests in this series, and it's always fun to speak to international guests because we get an international opening, an international idea of how much how much parallel life is on the other side of the world. So now my guest I want to introduce is, of course, like I said, an international guest. Her name is Sue Bowles. I hope I pronounce it right. Hi, Sue.
Hi, it's bowls, like a cereal bowl.
Awesome. How are you? How is everything on your end?
I am doing well. It's a sunny day here where I am in Ohio in the United States, so sun always helps.
Awesome. So before we begin this conversation, I want to take it back to high school. Your high school specifically.
Mhm.
What were who are you if you and I were classmates in high school?
Wow. Looking back, I can tell you I was very insecure. I was involved in a lot of things. I was involved in band. I was involved in drama. When I was a senior, I played basketball. So I did a lot of things, but I was very insecure. How do I put it? I was looking for anything and anyone that would give me value. So if I was seen, then I felt I had worth. So I didn't realize all that at that point in time. But I went to a private high school, a Catholic high school in Ohio, and had a great education. Like I said, I had a lot of involvement, choir, band, symphonic band, marching band, drama, basketball, all kinds of stuff. But deep down, I was looking for significance.
That's pretty interesting. Nice way to open up a conversation.
Hmm.
Would you consider yourself in the label introverted, extroverted, or inverted for that matter?
Then I would say I was very much an introvert, and introversion and extroversion really don't have to do with your personality as much as it has to do with how you process things. So an extrovert is very it needs different external things to help them process. I process things internally as if I'm an introvert.
Interesting you mentioned. This is an interesting conversation because it's delving right into the psychology of introvertedness. And how did you manage? You mentioned you were everywhere. How did you manage to be? How did you manage to adapt to the situations? Like you mentioned, you were in bands, you were everywhere, trying to gain attention or trying to gain uh, the acknowledgement that that you are seeking. How
Hmm.
how did you manage to adapt yourself towards that situation? Or
I mean, for me, it just became what I did. My brother went to my brothers went to the same school, and the older one was also involved in band, also involved in chorus. So I kind of followed that step, at start. And then
yeah,
as I started developing my own friends, my own identity, that still became something I enjoyed. It was a place where I fit in, because I didn't fit in anywhere else. I wasn't. I played basketball 1 year. I
yeah,
wasn't a great athlete. Um, you know, that was really, you had sports, you had drama, and you had band, and those were really, and maybe a couple clubs outside of school.
yeah,
So for me, in terms of adapting, that just kind of became what I did. Our family is very musical, so it was very natural in that regard. I've always loved sports. I've been very athletic in that regard. I just had never played organized sports in terms of a high school. I played summer sports, and was good at that. So it wasn't so much of an issue of adaptability as much as it was just, what's next on the schedule.
interesting, interesting. There's a lot of things that I could take away from that, but it's very interesting. For me, from my end, I come from a different background. I got bullied, so I could never really consider myself introverted or extroverted for
Mm-hmm.
that matter. I'd probably be an extraverted, if you know what I mean.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
uh, it it was an interesting perspective of how things come about, and yeah. So moving forward in life, what are those life lessons that you've taken, key lessons that you've taken from high school, if there are still some few principles that
Yeah.
you
Wow. I think just look, and again, I've learned a lot about myself as I look back, as I've gone through a lot of healing. But I had a lot of trauma in my life. I was also in a dysfunctional home. So, a latchkey home is what they call it, where your mom and dad are both working. So you come home and the house is empty for a few hours. Um, so I learned a lot about myself as I look back at things. And one of the things I learned is just that it's okay to not be okay, that you don't have to hide your emotions. You don't have to hide when you're struggling. You don't have to be afraid of somebody making fun of you if you need somebody else to help support you along the way. And I think that's one thing I would say to myself now, would be that, it's okay to not be okay, and
yeah,
take that first bold step and reach out. Be that a guidance counselor, or talking to a youth leader, or talking to your parents, say, I'm struggling with this and I need some help. Whatever it is, I would say advocate for yourself, because no one knows what you need better than yourself.
interesting. It's very powerful. It's very powerful the way you deliver yourself now. Then I can imagine you even more younger and more introverted. Would you have the ability to communicate like this or with your friends, or you won't? What what would be a normal conversation with you in high school would be, rather than
Wow. When I was
what would be the difference?
I think the difference would be, when I was in high school, I was a tornado of emotions. And I didn't know how to handle them. I would get mad, and I punched a locker. I kicked walls. I dented a locker one time. So
Oh,
I was when I worked a fast food job. When I was mad, I would take my hand and I would go into the walk-in, where the walk-in refrigerator, and I would punch the cardboard boxes. But I was always smart enough, if you want to call it that, to do it with my left hand, because I'm right-handed, and that way I could still work. So when I was in high school, I was not well. I was screaming for attention, and I didn't know how to get it, so I acted out. So I didn't know how to deal with my emotions. I was very insecure, and I was I don't know. I was not well. I'll put it that way. I was not well because I didn't know my own worth. And I've learned that
Yeah.
since. So who I am now is not who I was in high school. It's a 180 from where I was in high school. I'm totally content now with who I am, what I'm doing, and the message I have to get out across the world. And in high school, I didn't believe I mattered. I didn't even think I made a difference anywhere. And I didn't know, what kind of conversations I would have with my friends. I don't even, it would just, in some way, it would be rooted in some kind of insecurity, in one way or the other. May not
Yeah.
necessarily be in words, but it would be, where can we go to be seen? Where can we go? What else is happening on campus? There's this dance. Are we going so we can be part of the crowd? So there was,
Yeah.
whatever it was always had an undertone of insecurity to it.
Wow. Take me away. Wow. This is a breathless conversation. I'm taken away from this conversation. But I gotta ask though. You mentioned that
Mm.
uh, that you had you you've lived in a dysfunctional family, and
Mhm.
you've survived trauma. May I know,
Mhm.
is there a certain point that I'm sure everybody has this kind of thing in their life, like a certain point where they go, enough is enough and time for change. What was your story, and how did it start, and was it a gradual thing, or was
Mm.
it just in the middle of the street when you were walking, suddenly something hit you and said, "Hey, I wanted to change."
Wow. Well, my story actually, the first trauma was when I was 7 years old, and a
Okay.
classmate raped me after school one day. And I didn't tell anybody for 15 years. So it wasn't until my senior year of college that I finally told someone. And even then, I didn't know the secret wanted to come out. As I have grown and learned about myself, as I've healed from all that, I've come to learn that the things we just talked about my behavior and my attitude and my thoughts in high school, were
Yeah.
all rooted. They all go back to that day that I was raped. I didn't know that at that point in time because I hadn't even told anybody. So there were a number of years where I was in and out of counseling, trying to deal with it, trying and everything, but there was so much of life that had buried on top of that initial root situation that
Yeah.
I had to get through that stuff first before I could even go back to the past to find the healing that I desperately needed.
Yeah.
So the turning point for me to start that journey was in 2008. My pastor's wife passed away in 2005 from breast cancer. And 3 years later, I was grieving her as if it was yesterday. And
Yeah.
then I'm in recovery from an eating disorder. And some of the red flags for my eating disorder were starting to come up. So I reached out to my pastor, who then got me in touch with somebody. And I've been with that counselor since. So we've been just over 14 years now, which is fantastic because life continues to happen and it never hurts to have extra support.
Yeah.
So that was the turning point for me, was to realize that, all right, it hasn't been an issue for a while. Now all of a sudden it is. Because here's the thing, if we have things from the past that are unresolved, they will find a way out again. And when I looked at my counselor about the third session, and I was trying to figure out, what was it that was causing my eating disorder to kick up again, I looked at her and said, "What do you think it is?" And she said, "I think it's just a bunch of unresolved issues." And so we got to work. But even then, it took 6 years of dealing with the present before we could go back to the past. So it wasn't until 2014 that I finally went all the way back to deal with the rape. And she and we have a fantastic relationship. She and I have talked about it a number of times, and she said something that I've never forgotten. And she said, we had to get you stronger in the present before we could go to the past, before we could go back in time. Because when I first started with her, I was letting myself be manipulated. I had no boundaries. I didn't know how to speak up for myself. I was letting
Yeah.
other people walk all over me. So all those things that I said I would tell myself as a high schooler now, of you are your best advocate, are because those are the things that I had not been for myself, and I had to learn how to do them in my adult life.
Wow, I'm blown away, and I just wish I just wish I'm visually there to give you a hug because I didn't expect that right out of the bat. I I I really wish I was there just to give you a hug because that's
Oh, thank you.
unexpected. Even for me personally, I've never gone through that experience. I had a guest once who shared the
Hmm.
same trauma, so he had to migrate to New Mexico. But that's a different story altogether. But
Hmm.
this one's really powerful. This I didn't expect this, to be honest, guys. For those who are listening, I don't really expect much from my guest, but wow. I don't know how to follow that up.
Well, let me see if I can help you out. While I appreciate all that, what I have learned for the longest time, I'm a Christ follower, I'm a Christian, and for the longest time, I was very mad at God. I was like, why did you let that happen? Why did you abandon me? You know, you can't be God, all those things. And
Yeah,
I had to work out a lot of those things. But what I can tell you is that now I understand. I understand what happened. I even understand why they happened. And I'm not saying it's a reason from God. I'm not
yeah,
saying God caused that at all. He didn't. What I'm saying is that um, what happened to me was because someone else was struggling with different things, had experienced different things, and didn't know how to deal with it themselves. And they too acted out. And I just happened to be the victim at that point in time for whatever it was that was going on. That doesn't make me bad. It doesn't make the other person bad. It means that everyone has struggles. But what
yeah,
has been really cool about this whole thing is that now I am to the point where I have had healing in my life that I never thought was possible. In
yeah,
2014, I called myself the holy exception, believing that I was too far gone, too screwed up, and a waste of time, and
yeah,
that everything I wanted for my life was out of reach because it was just too. I was too much of a mess. And
yeah,
here I am 8 years later on a podcast based in the Philippines sharing my story.
yeah,
And what I can tell you is that with all of this that has happened, I am now have an opportunity to speak into the lives of millions of other people so that they too can be encouraged and so that they too can find hope and so that they too can begin to realize that their life is not over because certain things have happened to them and that it is never too late to start again and maybe to start for the first time.
yeah,
And my business name is called My Step Ahead. I'm a life coach and I'm a speaker. And the concept, our tagline is that you only have to be a step ahead to help the person behind you. And that is the message I am out to give across the world is that no matter what has happened, you are one step further down the road than someone who is just experiencing it now. And by that sheer fact, you can help somebody else with what you have gone through, even if you don't have it all figured out for yourself.
yeah,
That is one of the biggest lies people believe is that I'm not good for, I can't be of good to anybody else. I have
yeah,
nothing to offer because I don't have it together myself. That is a lie,
yeah.
and it's not true. And that is what my purpose is to help people begin to embrace the truth that you only have to be a step ahead to help the person behind you.
Wow. I was about to go to the occupation, but you went straight into it already. Uh, uh, wow. Uh, wow. It's amazing. It's an amazing thing. And I'm proud of you personally from the bottom of my heart. I want to say I'm proud of you and I'm proud to have connected with you because this is such a powerful
Thank you.
message for those who are struggling and at times like this crisis like the pandemic where things are crazy and politically
Hmm.
everybody is all over the place now and nobody has a
Hmm.
center. They don't have they're not centered with themselves, and this is some
Right.
powerful material. I, and wow, speaking of the foundation, when did that start with the foundation and your I know that you've spoken to your uh what you call mentor, I forgot the word, uh your
My counselor.
advisor, yeah, your counselor.
Hmm.
When did the foundation start
Foundation for what?
for your business?
Oh, for my business. I That started in 2016, and the foundation for that started. My business didn't start until 2019, and um, all that to say that, um, and I say it started in 2016 because that's when I was really starting to do my healing. And there's a retreat program here in the States called Walking Stick Retreats, and
Yeah,
I was been involved with that. And through that, I've gone through some very pivotal steps to healing,
yeah,
and I had to own my story. I had to grieve my story, and then the third, this the pivotal point for me was daring to believe that I mattered.
yeah,
That was the key point for me, because nothing happens until we believe that we have something to offer, until we
yeah,
believe that we matter, and that's a core belief. So when I left the retreat that third year and walked away with that nugget, that's when things started. I started speaking at a local high school, and I started sharing about eating disorders. I started writing my book in earnest. The book came out in 2019.
yeah.
So, um, so there've been a lot of different things that have transpired, but my step ahead has only been around for a couple of years now.
Wow. So, wow. This is mind blowing, to be honest. Wow, I don't know how to fill the gaps with between questions now. This is mind blowing. This is what I live
What
for for doing this for a very long time. This is what I live for. Those unexpected moments, just authentic, unexpected moments. You were saying something.
Oh, part of my step ahead is I'm also a master certified life coach. So my step ahead is the business name, and under that umbrella, we provide life coaching services. We provide speaking services. We'll go out. I speak at state and national level conferences. College campuses, high school campuses. So wherever been on, have some local media with television. So wherever there's an opportunity to get the message out, that's what we do. So my step ahead is the umbrella organization, and we have so many things we offer underneath that.
Yeah. All of those stuff we'll post that on the show notes of our episode. That uh, I'd love to share all of that stuff. It's
It'd be
amazing.
great. Thank you.
It's amazing. Wow. This has been one crazy hell of a conversation, I gotta say. Uh, and I don't know, I do not know what to say because the conversation just took a different turn. I didn't expect I didn't expect this right off the bat. So of course I gotta ask though, how many how many stories? I'm sure you've also heard stories from your from people who've reached out to you. How many have recovered the same way that you've recovered or is still in the process?
I don't know if there's any way to put a hand on that, because I don't. Many more people have heard me speak than what I hear back on. So there's no way to really put a number or figure to it. I know that when I get feedback from people, that's very energizing for me. It helps me
Yeah,
know that I am doing what I'm supposed to be doing.
yeah,
Uh, you know when I, But I can't speak to is as a life coach. I had a mother daughter team come to me in 2020 during the pandemic,
Yeah.
and they actually no, it was just last year, 2021, and they had a major falling out during the pandemic. They ranked their relationship at a 10 out of 10 before their falling out, and then it went down to a 4 out of 10. They came to me
Wow.
for life coaching, and we went through a lot of what seemed to be basic tools, but when
Yeah.
you are operating out of your emotion,
Yeah.
having to take having to step back from the emotion and bring the rational brain into it. And I don't mean that in a negative way, but
Yeah.
in a way to counterbalance the emotion, and to
Yeah.
bring in the other side of the brain so that you can counterbalance that and have a little more balance and neutrality to see what's going on. We spent about 3 months together working through these different things. When they ended coaching, they felt their relationship was back to an 8 out of 10. And most importantly, that they had the skills and the tools they needed to get it back to a 10 out of 10. So those are the ones that I know I'm
Wow.
making a difference. And
Yeah.
it's neat to be able to hear that story, to know that, that somebody, I had another client around the West Coast, we met virtually, and, he was an architect and he wanted to start
Yeah.
his own business. So we went
Yeah.
through a whole process to determine, to help him determine what it was he wanted to do. He wanted to start a landscaping company. So we helped him, take those first steps. So it's been fun to be able to help other people see
Yeah.
their dreams become reality, see their dreams become present reality. Because oftentimes we think of a dream as something that's still in the future, something
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
always striving for. But
Yeah.
there's nothing wrong with that dream becoming your reality right now.
Yeah. I understand that completely because I understand, and I I agree 100% with what you've said, because yeah, sometimes there's that struggle, there's that mental block, and how you make that mental block a stepping stone is really interesting.
Mm-hmm.
How you turn
Mm-hmm.
stones into bread, as the gospel
Yep.
says, is pretty
Yep.
pretty much interesting. I I
It's fun.
admire. I admire because at least here you have.
I,
Yeah, you're saying.
I didn't mean to interrupt you. I apologize.
No, you were saying something.
Oh, I, I said helping people turn that stepping stone, into a reality. That what they think is an obstacle
Yeah.
into a reality. That's the fun part. That is so rewarding for me as a life coach. Again, I'm a master certified life coach, and it, that's what I love, is being able to help people with that. Whoever would have dreamed that an architect would want to start a landscaping business?
Yeah.
But that's where he was, and there might have been some things in mind of, I can't do that. How am I going to pay for things? What about this? What about that? But when you have somebody else walk along with you for a short period of time, and you can work through those things and see it from a different side and a different angle, then you see an opportunity where there's room to move that you may not have thought there was room to move before. And
Yeah.
that's what I get to do as a life coach. When I'm out speaking, I get to plant those seeds so that someone else again can begin, so the seed can be planted and start to germinate within them, that they too have worth, that they matter, and that what they want to do now can happen now if they want it to.
Yeah. I'd recommend, guys. For those who are listening, I'd recommend you guys reach out to my guest, Sue Bowles, because she is the best. I mean, wow, this has been an education. This conversation has been an education for me. I felt like I was taken to church, and it's just an amazing feeling. It's just that how I can understand how people speak to you now, because of the energy and the vibe that you have, that calm vibe, that calm energy that you have, somehow resonates with people, and that understanding and that patience. Especially the patience is one of the most toughest things to endure when it comes to having conversations with people, because sometimes some people, they want to speak more, they want to release everything in one shot, just like me. Sometimes when I
Mm.
talk to my therapist, I want to speak a lot, and sometimes I try to hold it in. It's really interesting that you have that patience, and you are such a powerful person, and I'm proud to be a friend, a friend, and this has been educational and inspirational at the same time. Wow.
Well, it's been great being on the show. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Unfortunately, since Zoom doesn't want us to extend and it has a 40-minute gap, I want to say thank you so much for everything, for the conversation. I felt like this has been a life-changing experience. This conversation in itself has been an experience. But before we go, of course, my listeners would love to connect with you. How will they find you on social media?
Yeah, their best bet is go to SueBowles.com. It's you see my name on the screen. It's BOWLES.com. And all my social media links are there. Also, while you're there, I have a free PDF I'd love to get to you. It's called The First Four Steps of Healing. And it's the first, I take it from my book. My book's on Amazon and Kindle. You'll see a link from it to later down that same website. But I take it from the book, and we talk about the first four steps of healing. No matter what has been taken from you, no matter how it was taken from you, these first four steps are universal because they get to the core of the matter. Before you deal with the specifics, these four steps need to be embraced because these are the ones that will bring the depth of healing that you are searching for. So when you're on there, SueBowles.com, be sure to click that link. I'd love to get that email to you. You can follow me on social media. All the links are right there. I've got a YouTube channel, just everything that you can find right there at SueBowles.com.
Awesome, awesome. Guys, I highly recommend her if you're looking to change your life and if you're stuck in a rut and and you happen to be on my podcast. Guys, go to suebowles.com. I'd recommend, highly recommend. I want to say thank you, Sue, for being a part of my show, and thank you so much for inspiring me to move forward, because I wanted to add this on before I forget. I'm also stuck in a rut. I'm facing my own personal crisis. I'll talk about that later on with you personally.
Mm-hmm.
I'm stuck in my own personal crisis, and hearing this story opened my mind to say, hey, there's a lot more outside that has to be offered than it is to struggle alone
Mm-hmm.
in the inside.
Mm-hmm.
So I want to say so much for being part of the show. Hopefully, if time permits, you'd come back and we'd have a fresh topic and all that stuff. So yeah,
I'd be honored to. That'd be great. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
thank you so much.
Yeah.
And for those who are tuning in, cheers, folks, and we'll see you next